What is going on, everyone? AP over here, Run Pure Sports, bringing to you once again Friday edition of the Lineup Builder Show with our partners, SaberSim, Rubio. We got death, taxes, and my Kansas City Chiefs just inevitably pissing everyone off, getting the win. A lot of fun stuff. I do not want to spend too much time, stroking my Chiefs. So I will not do that. I promise you I won't do that. But going back to yesterday, awesome showdown slate. I think we nailed it. You talked up Isaiah Likely. We were both very, very high on him. Had him in the core. I think both of us had him in the core. I got close to locking Jalen Hurts at captain. Obviously, that wasn't the optimal route, but it ended up being a fine showdown slate for me. And, when I'm running 20 builds, my 20 max, I do like to take some of those stands. I think actually I wasn't locked, but I think it was 60, 70% Jalen Hurts captain with
Lamar Jackson, you mean, right?
I mean, yeah. Lamar Jackson.
The second time. I let you say it the first time. I had to get you on the second one.
I know. But again, it was a fun showdown slate. I wish we had Isaiah Likely up there in the captain spot. Rubio, let's bring you in. What's going on, my man? How are you doing on this fine Friday?
Oh, yesterday's slate was great. I wish I didn't X out Isaiah Likely captain. Maybe if I ran 150, I wouldn't have done that. That flying up that 198K was so simple. It was really just 4 Chief studs: Rice, Mahomes, Worthy, and Pacheco with Likely captain Lamar. It was a great lineup, but yeah, I want to be right more times than I'm not. So profiting a decent chunk of change on Thursday is always good. And then this year we get the added bonus of potentially doing it on Friday. So this is a game in Brazil. So I had planned to speak Portuguese a little bit up here, completely through Google Translate. I won't spoil anyone's day with that. But this game is in Brazil. It should be noted that. And it's not really a home game for any team. Did see that the Eagles have a way shorter path to the stadium than the Packers do if you include traffic and stuff. So slight advantage Eagles, I guess, despite it being on a neutral field.
Yeah, kind of wild. I'm kind of excited to see the environment and everything. And obviously, people talk about it being dangerous and stuff down there, but they'll be fine. I'm sure they have plenty of security and everything. But I do think, Rubio, it's a really interesting showdown slate. So obviously a ton of changes for both teams. Packers new defensive coordinator, 2 new running backs, one on each team, Josh Jacobs, obviously, and Saquon Barkley. So you're going to see a little bit of a different look. The other thing too, so I got the past optimals showdown optimals page up. I wanted to highlight this because you got 2 kind of stories here. One team, one team of the Packers that had a really brutal start to the season. And then we started to see things click. We saw Jordan Love really emerge, and he was very impressive. This was a team that obviously should have beat the 49ers there in the playoffs and fell a little short, kind of let that one go. Obviously, Packers very, very bullish on this team. Started off slow, finished the season very, very strong. The opposite case for the Eagles. The Eagles started really strong, had a lot of, really big wins early on, and then, 1-5 down the stretch, and then got absolutely demolished by the Bucs in that first wild card playoff game. So just taking a step back from a macro point of view, what's your kind of thoughts on the game tonight before we get into the base build and SaberSim?
Yeah, it's you never want to be overly, ambitious with pulling 2023 stats, but there is one thing that was clear that we did all last season. We attacked the Eagles secondary. It was one of the worst in the league. They invested a little bit of money in there. They invested a couple draft capital, guys like Cooper DeJean and Quinion Mitchell. DeJean might not even play tonight, so that might not even be a factor there, but they also replaced their defensive coordinator. Vic Fangio comes in. He was with the Dolphins last year. So the Eagles are going to look a little bit different defensively, but don't forget, they also lost Hassan Reddick. They also lost Fletcher Cox. This defense, to me, is still not up to the standard that, you'd expect maybe a championship team, right? So I do think there's going to be points in this one. You look on the opposite side of the ball, the Packers. They were pretty weak against the run last year. You made a good mention, too, just when you're bringing in, a lot of different changes. I really want to be truly hesitant on just pulling 2023 stats and acting like that's going to happen today. But they were weak against the run last year. And now you get this Eagles team that honestly should want to pound the ball 20, 25 times a game with a guy like Saquon and Hurts combined. That's probably a little light on that number if you're including those QB rushes. I like how this slate builds out. Yesterday, we weren't on the running backs, and Pacheco was in the winner. But Henry, despite getting in the end zone and into the box early, wasn't even really close. It was Justice Hill who outscored him even. And I'll say this, like one last comment on yesterday's slate. Justice Hill was 7%. Like that was one of the craziest. I had unique lineups in the single entries because of Justice Hill being 7%, but likely it was only 18. So it just shows you. I mean, like if you got conviction and stuff, you got a chance to get some low-owned guys, especially early on in the season. Today, we might get that with guys like Emmanuel Wilson, who could be just a straight backup to Josh Jacobs, depending on Marshawn Lloyd's availability. There's going to be a small bit of potential here, but I know today for sure I'm going to be on both running backs because they're both workhorses. They both are going to get involved in the passing game, and it's going to be different than yesterday just purely because I really love all these top guys. And yesterday I was able to discard the running backs and still have a pretty good day.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said there. So let me go and bring up SaberSim. So we got SaberSim up right now. Already got the base build ran, sorted by projected score. So just a reminder from yesterday's show, what is a base build? We just take the baseline projections. What I did is I averaged SaberSims and RPSs, and you run it. You don't change anything. You don't add any bias. You don't, game scripts or anything like that. You just run it, and then we sort by projected score. We're trying to get an idea of what the slate looks like. What is general roster construction going to look like? What are ownership allocations over 150 lineups going to look like? Just to give us a nice base to start from, and then we can start working in some different assumptions and narratives that we see that could pan out. So, and obviously we're going to build our game script. I have that ran right here. And then I'm going to go into two other things that I just thought was kind of interesting that I ran using a few other things in SaberSim that I think is kind of interesting. But let's dive into this. So, captain, obviously, Jalen Hurts is our high in the base build, our highest exposure in the captain spot, 29%, followed by Josh Jacobs, then Jordan Love, Saquon Barkley, Dallas Goedert. What's your do you have any initial thoughts, impressions, just looking at the base build, some of the lineups that we're seeing right here? Mute.
Thank you. It does make sense.
If this was next week, I would have let you go for like a minute or two.
Yeah.
It'd be nice since it's Friday.
I was pulling up Discord because we did need to get a projection for Jahan Dotson in there. I don't think it would have impacted the base builds too much. I do notice that Dotson's not in there. But really, I'm not surprised by a mid-tier captain team. And look at that mid-tier captain build that you've got. And this is assuming Tucker Kraft plays too. I think he's going to be a good to go, full go for today. Him and Musgrave will be splitting tight end duties. So even then, it's still a little bit shaky, but I do like Kraft at 2,800. But a mid-tier captain build, I did it with Christian Watson over Dallas Goedert. And it looks nice. And like I said, I'm on both running backs. You can get both quarterbacks there. It's a pretty decent build. I actually really like the look of that. And then when you scroll down to the cheap captain with Bo Melton there is an interesting one because we just saw it yesterday. And like I said, just because something happens yesterday does not mean it's going to happen today. But Isaiah Likely captain was in the winner. And you know how he did it? Well, he went, what was it, like 9 catches for 114 yards and a touchdown?
Almost added one at the end there, too. I mean,
2 touchdowns. I'm not going to sit here and say, like, I love cheap captain or whatever, but I love all 5 of those players that it allows me to get. Bo Melton is the only red flag there, and it is interesting. It leaves 1,200, so you can get a 2K player in there. Not that there's a ton of like options there or anything like that, but it is a very interesting build that I will slightly entertain for like a 20 max or even a 3 entry max because look at what it gets you. But I probably won't get too carried away with it at all. I mean, I like those builds though with quarterback captains and stuff. It's just, what did we say yesterday? The quarterbacks are too cheap. DK went back down and doubled down on it. Look at this. What do we get with Jalen Hurts? We get 10.6. With Jordan Love, we get 9.8. So you're looking at about 20.4K, if my math is serving me just. 20.4K from 2 starting quarterbacks. That's elite. I mean, two great quarterbacks even for fantasy football purposes. So it's going to be very tough to get away from both running backs today. It just is, or both quarterbacks today. And then I could love both running backs. It just
wouldn't you
the passing game.
When you compare quarterback pricing specifically to like last season, wouldn't you say, what are we, like 1,000 off? I mean, some of these quarterbacks, 2,000 off. Yeah,
I think we can go ahead and check it. This is actually a really easy thing to check with Jalen Hurts' game log. In the playoff game against the Bucs, he was 11-6. So you're right, 1,000 off. In the regular season, there was at one point where he hit 12K. So yeah, I would say you're right. I would say 1,000 off.
Yeah, and that's really why I took such a bold stance on Lamar Jackson. And he had to be close. I mean, likely had an incredible game. I mean, both tight ends, in my opinion, Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce looked a little dusty. Great call from you again on being under on Mark Andrews, obviously over on Likely. That was an excellent call. But again, when quarterbacks are mispriced like this, and especially when we have rushing upside from our quarterback, I'm going to be pretty bullish, especially at that captain slot. So I would expect myself likely to have a lot of Jalen Hurts tonight, but we will see, obviously, when we get into scripting this out. Anything else you want to touch on the base build? I mean, I think a lot of this looks pretty standard. Obviously, when we run our script, we're going to add in, we're going to get that projection fixed, and we'll be good to go there. But anything else you want to add on here, or should we get to building out our script?
I think we can go ahead and get started with talking about the positions here.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's see. Let's sort this by flex. Let's start with the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And game script wise, let me add in the filters. My bad. I should have done this. Should have learned from you yesterday. What do you say?
You're doing great.
Our projection greater than 1, right?
Yeah, I like that.
Save that filter. We'll X these guys out, and we're good to go. So yesterday we started when we talked about the quarterback position. We really talked about how do we see the game going. And one thing I thought we did pretty good. We were both on the overs, just barely got there. I feel like the over should have easily hit. Like I thought that game should have gone way over just from what I was seeing. But tonight we have two what I think should be kind of a little offensive battle. Again, what's your thoughts on the game tonight, and specifically the quarterback position with Jordan Love and Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, I actually see points today, and you're exactly right. Yesterday's game had people tilting a little bit with that touchdown. I think it moved down to 45.5 after kick, or right around kickoff AP. I don't know if it was the storm that did that, or if there was lightning in the area, but I'm pretty sure I saw 45.5 at one point. So it was kind of crazy that it even tailed down in total right before kickoff and stuff. But today I see points too. When I look at Jalen Hurts, I look at Jordan Love. What I love about this Packers team, and I actually think it's a terrible matchup for the Eagles, is that they legitimately have 4 great wide receivers that Jordan Love can throw to. Great, maybe a stretch. They have 4 good wide receivers. It's just a little bit of a mismatch in that secondary. You're going to have guys like Tontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed, Romeo Dobbs, Christian Watson, able to kind of make it really frustrating from a DFS point of view. I think, LaFleur even was like on record saying, oh yeah, you're never going to know which one, which is great for us DFS players who are not going to be able to pinpoint who is going to do well, in that offense. It could be any given one of them. But I do know one thing. I think Jordan Love is going to be able to throw on them. And I do think that what we saw LaFleur say, and I always mention, especially in the offseason and stuff too, up in training camp, the Coach Speak Index, which I think they have a Patreon and stuff, but like they're on Twitter and they also have a Discord and stuff. I'll just steal one thing from the Discord. And it was like what LaFleur said about Josh Jacobs and his pass catching ability. Like he is going to be, they want to utilize him in the passing game. So I could even stack Jordan Love with like Josh Jacobs and stuff like that and still feel fine. I definitely want at least one wide receiver with Jordan Love. With Jalen Hurts, on the other hand, that's where it becomes a little bit more debatable, AP, especially if the tush push is gone. Like I almost feel like I want to stack him with a wide receiver, but it's so much harder to do so when Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown are also really high in price. Then again, I mean, the case for it is that it's a very narrow target tree. But I do want both quarterbacks. I do think getting them up in projection there. I think Hurts is fine at 23, 24. I like that. And then Jordan Love at 21 feels great too. These are two guys where it's safe to be over on. They're 1K too cheap each. And that's what I'm feeling like with the quarterback position.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Let me just go back to the past optimals. And again, we're not relying solely on like 2000, last season stats or anything like that. But when you're talking about a young defense, a secondary that was absolutely exploited last year in the Eagles side, I do think it's somewhat, relative today. So let me share this tab again. And so a couple things in games that the Packers won and put up, 25-ish plus points. Jordan Love, captain. That's definitely one thing I like to see. And then when we go back and we look at the end of the season for Philly, that stretch where they just got absolutely torched, destroyed. Obviously, they had a lot of injuries, specifically in the defense. But, man, opponent wide receiver, opponent quarterback. So, I mean, the case for Jordan Love. So let me go back to Saber. Obviously we have a higher projection on Jalen Hurts, but Jordan Love, I think just on the surface, for me, is going to make for a pretty interesting captain option if we go back to that overscript, which is probably what I'm going to be on. So I have a ton of interest in Jordan Love, but again, with Jalen Hurts, what we get, obviously the rushing upside is just going to be massive. One more question back to you. What about, so obviously Jason Kelce retired. We got a fresh new center. I mean, he was like the heart of that offense in that line. I mean, I think it's going to be a pretty big impact. How are you treating? Are you factoring that into your projections at all? I mean, it is a big hit to Philly. So what's your take on that?
I don't think it's dumb at all. I mean, Jason Kelce, you're exactly right. I mean, what you read on Twitter, you never know what's true or what's not. But like he was making all the adjustments for the offensive line and stuff, and you take that away from any quarterback, it's going to hurt them. Or take away any leader of the offensive line, especially. I don't hate that at all. I don't hate that if you think that's going to impact them. And honestly, if you think the Packers win this game, which I kind of do, there's a case that you made. I'm actually shocked that Jordan Love was in the captain that many times last year, and a lot of that has to do with the amount of weapons that the Packers got. Right, like if he throws 3 touchdowns, it could easily be to 3 different dudes. So it actually makes a lot of sense, and it makes me more on Jordan Love captain than I originally was. So I'm kind of curious to see how the Sims kind of work that out. And with Jalen Hurts, Jason Kelce being gone, is there a tush push? Could it go away? Sirianni's been kind of vague. I mean, he seems to think that it's going to be back and stuff. It's not going to be an issue. And Jason Kelce was only a small piece of the puzzle. But I'm with you. I don't mind. Let's get them even. Let's get them even. Same projection there. 22s a piece. I wouldn't mind selling just slightly.
No, we're going. I got to give Hurts the slight bump over him because of the rushing upside. But we're very, very bullish on Jordan Love, which kind of fits. Obviously we give our picks at the end. Kind of fits the mold that I'm going to have. With who I think wins this game, and what I think the score is going to be. So very, very high on Jordan.
Jalen Hurts last year was not healthy, at all, and he should be healthy coming into this season. Those knees were gone last year.
Good point. Yeah, very good point.
Let's give him something in his favor a little bit too.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the running backs. So obviously we have a really, really healthy projection on both quarterbacks. They should hit the captain quite a bit, which again, if they're going to give us soft pricing, why not just, obviously, in larger field, the Millie Maker type of things, we can get the Isaiah Likeleys of the world in that captain spot. But for my style of play, I just am likely going to lean on the quarterbacks of the captain tonight. But we will see when we're done running this. We got the running backs up right now. The additions of Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, just massive for each team. I think it's going to be interesting to see how they use them tonight. What's your take on the running back position tonight?
So as I mentioned, I'm on the running backs last night, which is a complete change from what it was yesterday. I was on Justice Hill and Pete Ryan a little bit. Pete Ryan wasn't great. dropped the touchdown even. I'm willing to say it. But that ball he caught, I don't know if you saw how much yards of space he had. It was kind of crazy. But yeah, like I am on those starters today. And I'm even on Emmanuel Wilson, depending on the health of Marshawn Lloyd. I think there's a chance that Lloyd sits this game. Barely has practiced with the first team and stuff. And Emmanuel Wilson is the next man up. LaFleur has been vocal about Emmanuel Wilson at least getting a little bit more work behind Josh Jacobs. They've been vocal about wanting to play two quarterbacks, but when you only have Josh Jacobs and Emmanuel Wilson, you might have to force the hand a little bit on a guy like Jacobs. And LaFleur is saying that he wants to get Josh Jacobs utilized in the passing game is a great sign for PPR. We know exactly how much that matters on DraftKings. Hell, you saw it yesterday with Justice Hill. What was it, 6 catches or something like that, 50 yards. That needs to go noticed. And I think Jacobs going to be involved in the passing game, 8,200. We know he's going to be the goal line guy too. Definitely buying in on him. Saquon Barkley. The one thing that the Packers were really bad at defending last year was the run. They were mediocre against the pass. Like they weren't bad. They weren't great. Really, when they were 28th in rushing yards per game against. So that was 128.3. And one thing I labeled is that you want to target running backs against them. And I'm going to do that today with Saquon Barkley. It's the beginning of the season. They paid a lot of money for him. I think you're going to see big things out of Saquon tonight. I think you're going to see the old Saquon in a sense. And I don't think they're going to be afraid to feed him. And this is why, like, the tush push could be gone. It could lead to a bigger year for a guy like Saquon who, could be in line for, a double-digit touchdown season. So I'm buying both of these guys, buying Emmanuel Wilson, assuming Marshawn Lloyd sits, and then I'm going to be selling on Gainwell and Shipley.
So let's I like that. So I'm going to bump him down. Actually, I forgot about our rule. We should keep him in the pool. Yeah, we want to keep him in the pool. But specifically, let's dial in this projection between Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley. Right now, I mean, we have them pretty even. Who do we want to take a bolder stand on? I like what you said about Barkley. When I think of Josh Jacobs, I mean, man, obviously watch a lot of Chiefs games, seen a lot of Josh Jacobs, has ran all over my Chiefs. I know what he's capable of doing. He's a true, 3-down back, or can be. We'll see if how they use him. But I mean, guy's awesome, at picking up blitzes too. I mean, from just like a blocking standpoint too, I think he's going to be a massive addition for Green Bay. But who do we give the bump to? Barkley, Jacobs. I'm torn. I want to believe in Barkley, and I think the Packers. I like them to win tonight. So I think we could also get maybe Philly playing from behind. You get those easy dump offs if it's a close game and they're trying to get back into it down the stretch in the fourth. So maybe I lean Barkley with that type of script. But what's your thoughts on projections? Who do we bump more? Who do we want to take a bigger stand on here?
So I'm willing to predict that K Fallek comes into the chat today. So if you guys don't know K Fallek, he's one of the best 3-max and single entry guys out there. Always has a unique take. And I love what he said about, the Chiefs yesterday and the Ravens, talking about the guys who are on the field and stuff. With the Green Bay Packers, it's going to be tough to pinpoint any of the 7 pass catchers who are going to make an impact in that offense on a consistent basis. There is one running back who you're going to know is going to make an impact on that on a daily basis, and that is going to be Josh Jacobs. So I'd almost go to the lean to Josh Jacobs, and that's purely because if you're going Jacobs, you don't have to mess with multiple offensive pieces on the Packers. You could go Love, Jacobs, and say Christian Watson, right? That's one of my favorite combos today. I love all 3 of those guys. But if I faded Jacobs, I got to guess on another wide receiver. I got to guess on another tight end. And to me, if I'm playing Hurts, right, and I do plan on maybe a lineup with both quarterbacks and both starting running backs. That is very much on the table. And I like this question from Digital Buddha. Is there a negative correlation with that? I would say that there is a negative correlation with that, but it's also to the sense of what is it getting me? We saw Derrick Henry almost get optimal with Lamar yesterday. If Derrick Henry had like 2 more catches, he would have been the optimal and stuff. I'm willing to kind of forgive that here, especially in a game I see there's going to be plenty of points. But back to the conversation about wide receivers and running backs, like if I am playing Jalen Hurts, I'd almost feel like, I can get Smith or Brown and still have that funnel of consistent offensive production. With the Packers, I don't feel like I have that outside of Jacobs and Love.
Yeah, I like that. And my apologies. You ever get it? So like my allergies suck. Got the glasses on right now. My eyes are like probably like pure red, constantly sneezing. It's just brutal. I should not golf or try to golf at this point of the year. It's just absolutely brutal. But here's what I'm doing, Rubio. I'm making them even because I'm with you. We'll let the Sims kind of decide what our stance is going to be on Saquon Barkley versus Josh Jacobs. I think 15. Like I don't want to be like I want to be bullish and aggressive on the quarterbacks, but when it comes to the skill position players, outside of maybe the Philly situation, because we saw it last year, there's so many games where it's like an AJ Brown game or a Devontae Smith game, and not typically both at the same time. So, and then the Green Bay side, obviously with the trio of receivers there, it might add a lot of variance to the situation. So I don't want to be overly aggressive on either one. I'm just going to leave them both at 15-5. Let's get to the pass catchers. Let's bring tight ends and receivers in. What are we doing here? So, I talked about obviously last year with Philly, we saw so many games where it was AJ Brown or Devontae Smith. And I recall doing these shows with you, and we're to the point like we don't make a lot of rules, but I think we're to the point to where we're considering that type of a rule last year. So definitely something interesting to think of. And then on the Green Bay side, like you said, between the trio of receivers there, I mean, it's gonna be kind of like a guessing game. It reminds me of like the Chiefs situation that we've seen over the years. So what are we doing with the receivers? And then let's get we got Dotson in now. What are we doing with Jahan Dotson as well?
Yeah, so let's just go over the Eagles, wide receiver room, right? It's very thin, right? Very narrow, I should say, right? You know who Jalen Hurts is going to be throwing the ball to. It's going to be A.J. Brown. It's going to be Devontae Smith. It's going to be Goddard. And then you're going to see a splash of a guy like Dotson and stuff. Britton Covey made the team, might have a little slight, receiving option there, but it's like very marginal at best, nothing more than a punt. Johnny Wilson the same way, big body, 6'7" red zone guy, I would assume at the wide receiver spot. I do think that we need to bump up AJ Brown and Devontae Smith just slightly. I think maybe 16 and a half is perfect, then 14 for my guy Devontae. And then could just get those guys up a little bit because we know exactly who he's going to throw the ball to. It's not like it's going to be a mystery. If you saw Devontae Smith had 7 for 70 and no touchdowns, like you don't want to be missing completely out on that, especially at 9K. AJ Brown at 11K, we know exactly the type of talent he is, but he is the most expensive player in the slate. I do want to get him above the running backs because both these wide receivers deserve respect, but especially AJ Brown. So 16.7 is ahead of the running backs, which I really like. Yeah, and that's good too. Dallas Goedert's the one where it's like just fine. I'm cool with that projection. Jahan Dotson, I don't really see having an instant impact in this team, but he is going to be hopefully a down the field threat for them. It's almost like the projection that what was it in the past optimals page? I'm going to go to it. You don't have to, but what was that week 2 last year? That wide receiver, was it Zacchaeus who caught? Yeah, it was Olamide Zacchaeus who caught that long touchdown early on in the season there, and it was optimal. Jahan Dotson kind of has the potential to do that, but I don't really want to bank too much in it. So that projection we had of 4.81 is just perfect. That was against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers too. I think that 5-1 build, 3 rows from the bottom. So that's the type of build, or that's the type of performance you're hoping from Dotson there.
Yeah, I like that, and we don't have to change. Obviously, we don't have to change every single projection here. If you're doing this, you definitely can. But some of these spots where it's like, I'm fine with it. I don't really have a take, on the upside or downside. I just leave it alone. I'm pretty good with that. Goddard is the one. After seeing outside of Isaiah Likely, after seeing some of those tight ends yesterday, I'm like, whew, man,
not
absolute dust balls. Yeah. Not the good.
Isaiah Likely went off, man. He
absolutely went off. Yeah, I was talking. Yeah,
Mark Andrews, they put him on a milk carton.
Whew, man. So Goddard, are you fine with that 9.8? This projection, yeah.
Let's put it this way: if I had Goddard in my lineup, I'm not going to be mad.
Yeah, agreed. Let's go to the Green Bay side. I think it's obviously going to be a little bit more interesting. Christian Watson, healthy, hopefully stays healthy. That's always like I love his talent, and I love Green Bay's receiver room. I mean, I think they're absolutely stacked. A young group, very, very talented group. Christian Watson staying healthy is going to be very important. And looking at the projections right here, I mean, they're all projected relatively close to each other, which, again, makes sense. They're all priced relatively close to each other. What's your take on the Green Bay trio of receivers here?
Trio? It's a quad.
Well, I mean, yeah, quad, I guess. I'm looking at these three. I'm looking at these three. Yeah. I hear you. I hear you.
Well, in fairness, Dontavion Wicks' props really low. 2.5 and 25 yards, I think, is what the lines are, which I have hit the overs on. I also laddered Christian Watson. Those are actually two of my favorite wide receivers. And here's the thing about Christian Watson. He is the best wide receiver in that room, hands down. It's all about how those hammies hold up. When Christian Watson is on the field, he is one of the best receivers for fantasy football. And we're only playing one game, so those hammies can hold up for another game. And apparently he's gotten those hammies pretty healthy. The one guy I am buying the most on today is Christian Watson. And this is a great matchup for him. We know what these receivers are capable of doing against Philly last year. Watson, 5,600 is super cheap. He is the guy I'm buying on the most. I think Wicks, I think that's more of a sports book play for me, like where I'm just kind of hitting his overs. 5.4 is still pricey. Like, think about that. It's only 200 less than Christian Watson. It's only at 1K less than Jaden Reed. And Wicks is a great talent. He got that big, deep ball from Jordan Love to start the preseason and then never played since. They love his talent there. So I don't want to completely dismiss him. AP, I think that like 6.5 was good. Like, I do still want to splash. All right. But talking about single entry and 3 entry max and stuff, it's going to be really difficult to get it. I think Jaden Reed, you're going to see him involved probably in the backfield. You're going to see him involved on those like little jet sweeps, screen passes too. He's going to be fine for DraftKings. I think he's better on DraftKings than he is on FanDuel for that reason. And then like Romeo Doubs, like these projections just feel low for a team that can be exploited through the air. The problem is I understand completely of what these projections are doing. It's like, well, you're projected for 35 receiving points, 40 receiving points, which is kind of a lot. It's 20 catches for 200 yards without including touchdowns or anything. Like, I do want to be aggressive though on these receivers. I don't want to completely dismiss them, and they are cheap enough. Let's get Jaden Reed just below Christian Watson. Let's get Romeo Doubs just below 10, and let's see. Yeah,
and I mean, do we even want Christian Watson as the highest in this group? Like, I want to bump all of them. I mean, even if you highest. Okay.
This is like I thought he'd be the most pricey coming in, and the fact that he's like 1K less than or 1.2K less than Romeo Doubs was a little bit shocking to me. I laddered all his props up to 100 yards. I think I did like 1 unit for the base, and then I went like 0.5, 0.25, 0.1. But Watson's props were my favorite today.
I just think, when I kind of think about an overscript here, when you go back to last year, I mean, Jaden Reed had some monster games, like absolutely monster games. Romeo Doubs had some monster games. And obviously Christian Watson injured most of the season. It seemed like he had a couple of big games too. One of them against Kansas City. I remember that one vividly.
That was the one he pulled his hammy on too on the end around. Yeah. Right before the best ball playoffs, right when he was getting healthy, man. Why did he have to do that?
I mean, man, this group is good, and it's not, with Philly, hopefully they should be a little bit better, but still, Green Bay should be able to attack them, through the air, especially with these receivers. So it is interesting because it's not like we can give them all a monster projection, but I know at least one of them is going to have a monster game. So is this too light? Do we want to bump them higher? Or are you good with this? A couple point projection bump for all of them, basically, with Christian Watson be the most aggressive.
So I want to compare this real fast. I'm just going to do it real quick. Like, I think of the Eagles wide receiver room we had, just to kind of compare, because this is like, if I ever feel like I'm bumping like a room too high or anything, I go compare it with the other team, right? So I think the Eagles wide receiver room and tight end, we had them combined for about 42 points, probably 45 points. With the Packers right now, we kind of have a very similar outlook. I think we had 10. I think we had around 48, 50 points, which is fine. Like, I think we're at a good number. I think we could even bump them up more if we want. These projections were kind of soft to begin with in terms of just, I think a hesitant outlook. But yeah, I think it's a good number. I don't think we have to bump them up too high. We don't want to get too extreme. You still want to make sure it's still within reaching distance of the other team and a realistic expectation, which it absolutely is right now.
How about the tight end for Green Bay? What are you doing with this position?
So this is the toughest one. What we saw last year was Musgrave going down with an injury, and then Kraft was the one who stepped up in the playoffs and looked incredible. And since then, Kraft ended up getting hurt over the offseason, or was hurt heading into the offseason. Musgrave has been the guy who's been taking most of the snaps, the ones. But they very much feel like they have a 1A and 1D situation here. With the pricing the way it is, like you're going to look at, Luke Musgrave here at 4,600 and Kraft at 2,800. All the ownership is going to go to Kraft's way. And I haven't seen anything on his status like being in question for this game. I'm assuming he plays. I haven't seen anything that would indicate that he's not. It's almost like a wait and see. You hate saying that on like a showdown. I would buy on Kraft because he's cheaper, and it does feel like they're going to have the very similar roles. If you really want to leverage play, I don't think Musgrave comes. I think it's going to be half the ownership of Kraft, and that's a good leverage play in that situation, especially in an unknown situation. But I don't want to buy too much on either one of these guys, especially with the crazy receiving room around them.
I agree with you 100%. I want to actually bump them down. The receiving group is just so good. Like I want.
You hope Jordan Love isn't thrown to him too much.
Yeah,
they're good tight ends, but
but it's still a pretty bold projection. Like on what's realistic? Or do you have their props up?
Yeah, I can get them up right now. Yeah, I got it.
I was just thinking. Obviously, if one of them gets in the end zone, it's a different question.
So Musgrave's prop is better than I thought, and it's actually on par with Dontavion Wicks. So Wicks' prop is now 30.5. Musgrave's is 26.5, and his receptions is 2.5 with juice on the over. So give him a projection around 6. You know what? 6.44 wasn't that bad. And then Tucker Kraft, I don't see him posted right now. So
I'll bump him down.
I don't see any Tucker Kraft props. So let me go ahead and just check his status to make sure that, because he practiced, I think, the last game. Yeah, he went through a limited session. We'll see. We'll see on Kraft. If he's out, I think Musgrave is for sure a decent play at 4.6. And then it would bring in, Ben Sims as a pure punt, which might be an option on the table. Here, give Ben Sims a projection of 1.1. And let's just see if it hits in the Sims later on. And that's the only way we're playing them is if Kraft is out.
Okay, gotcha. Obviously that makes sense. I like this. Just kind of thinking off the top of my head, other ways where you could, attack the situation is create some rules, some grouping rules. Maybe I'm not going to do this, but if you're running less lineups and you didn't want some crazy lineup that had multiple receivers, or you wanted to be more aggressive on all three, you just didn't know who it was going to be, but you wanted to cap it to 2 of the 3 max. It's a rule that you could create. Like if you wanted to have a projection more so in line with the Philly receivers, instead of looking at it as like a group, make a group rule. Make sure you put all the players and the captain and the flex, and then say 2 max in your lineups, and that will assure that you don't get 3 into your lineups. And that's one way to where you could be a little bit more aggressive. Let's keep this going though. Let's go to the defenses and kickers.
Our favorite.
Yes. And why are we not getting – do we not have a – there we go. Where's our other defense?
You only have the Packers highlighted right now.
So I'm such a donkey.
No, trust me. I do this twice a day where I'm like,
it's too good.
Real quick. So,
went after it a little too hard last night. A little too hard, Rubio. Celebrating that Chiefs win.
Yeah.
All right. Kickers, defenses. What are we doing here?
So, like I said with kickers yesterday, I'm cool leaving them where they are. I think they're both fine. I actually think Elliott should be a decent margin ahead of Braden Narvison. And you might be accusing me of not knowing who Braden Narvison is, and you'd be exactly right. He did win the job over Anders Carlson. I got that confused. So Narvison kicked at NC State last year, Western Kentucky for 3 years. Let's see his leg. He was pretty good at extra points. He was actually a decent percentage in college, like 78%. I don't know. Let's get Narvison about 1.5 points lower than Elliott. Let's be overly aggressive on that because he just won the kicking job. His stats don't look.
Wait, which one?
Long at 57, so he must have.
You want okay?
I think that's 8 and 7.
We'll go the other way.
Oh,
this way, right?
Elliott higher than Narvison.
Okay, Elliott higher.
Yeah. And then Narvison, just seemed like a mediocre college kicker. I mean, he was good. Don't get me wrong, but not like crazy percentages or anything.
And I like that. Defenses, I obviously like I like the overs in this game. I've kind of hinted at that multiple times. I'm not too high on the defenses here, especially Philly. Packers, I don't know. What's your like? I almost want to bump them down a little bit, just like a slight bump down.
Let's do the Packers just above the Eagles, and then because if we think Hurts might struggle behind without Kelsey or whatever, Hurts might be a little more prone to throwing one to the other team. And that's I don't think
good with that.
I don't think it's going to be TD. Yeah, exactly. Let's let the Sims decide how much defenses we get.
Yeah, let's run this. Let's see where we're at. Go over to our settings.
Love this prediction, AP. Narvison is a dog. I love it.
I love
the conviction on that. I'm like, damn. Maybe we should flip the projections again. No. Packers D is retooled this year. Yeah, absolutely. This is where it's just tough to going into a new season like this. Kind of relying on last year's data is always a little bit fluky. I do think that they're still going to be a little bit more prone to the run than the pass game. And I do think the Eagles have the ability to still run the ball pretty well. So we'll see, though. I'm very, very bullish on the Packers this year, though.
So I have the contest sims already selected. We got the Millie Maker. We have a 20 max, and we have a single entry, just like we did yesterday. Going to be interesting comparing each to each other to see what the builds look like. And, man, I love it. That was pretty quick. I think I ran 2,500, 35 or 2,500.
They're super fast now.
Yeah. Donkey. Got to run the contest sims. Got to press that. So right now, obviously, it's sorted by, look at that, single game. Has Dallas Goedert up there?
It looks pretty good. I can't lie. That build, if you're fading, what you're doing there is you're fading Barkley and all the expensive Eagles weapons. It doesn't look bad.
So this is going to be interesting. I know we're not into the sims yet, but I X'd out 5-1s yesterday. I don't know if I'm going to do that tonight, just with how the Green Bay receivers are priced.
I would X out like Eagles 5-1s, but not Packers 5-1s.
Yes. Yep. Correct. Let's look at the Millie first, sorted by RA or ROI, risk adjusted. Let's look at our captains first. Sort of highest. Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. We're obviously very bullish on Jordan Love. We like Jalen Hurts. He's projected higher than Jordan Love, but 50% exposure. Jalen Hurts, then Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Christian Watts. I'm a little surprised that we're not getting more of the Packers receivers into our builds, into the captain spot. I could definitely see I could see Jordan Love kind of just, focusing in on one of them if one of them's going off. We saw that a couple times last season. Obviously, you can get that on the Philly side too. Or I could also see it just kind of diversifying, mix it, throwing it around, and it being kind of a frustrating situation. If that's what we get, if we get the, where he's targeting all of them and all of them are getting targets, getting run, then it's going to be Jordan Love captain. So I'm not mad at this at all and taking a big stand on Jordan Love. But what's your thoughts on the breakdown here with our captain exposure sorted under the Millie contest sims?
It is interesting, and I actually really like the sims for this reason. I think it's showing that in large field tournaments specifically, you want to double stack Love with him at captain, and it was optimal quite a bit last season. So I'm not going to butt heads with that. I'm not going to butt heads with Jalen Hurts captain. These quarterbacks are also cheaper too. So one of the biggest concerns in the past was it's really tough to play a quarterback captain if they're 12K, the receivers are 10K or whatever. With Jordan Love, he's under 10K, and his receiving options are all under 7K. So you're really getting a super affordable, captain build with really good players just all around the board. So I really like those builds. I mentioned how we were high on Jacobs and Barkley, at least I am and stuff. And you don't see them a lot here. Let's see that fifth build real quick with Jacobs at the captain. I'm kind of curious to see what that one looks like on ROI. So
I was looking at this Jordan Love one, and I'm like, initially it's we only have Romeo Dobbs in there. We talked up Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, obviously, and then it's like you can't feed all of these guys. I wouldn't excess in the millie at all because random stuff happens. And I mean, it's a wild outcome, but it fits that mold of an overscript, like 100%. So it's a wild, wild build, but it's an interesting one that maybe has some uniqueness to it. Which build were you looking at? The 5-1 right here?
Yeah, I was looking at the 5-1 there, and I just wanted to see what Jacob. So if we actually go to flex real quick for me, can you highlight a Jacobs build in the flex?
Yes.
So let's do this. So we get 30%. It's a little under the field as of things stand, right? Jordan Love, so it's 5-1. It's 5-1. Jeez, that's a lot of 5-1s, man.
I know.
Really good build, though.
I mean, let's look at I want to see the actually, hold on. I'll let you finish.
One on the bottom right there. That's an interesting one where he's projected for 0.49. We haven't filtered out. It still pops in because it's not like we X'd him out completely or whatever, but with EJ Jenkins in there, he would probably get a 0, but it's still surprising to see that populate. These are interesting teams just because there's just no Jalen Hurts in them. That's what's shocking to me.
And we gave Jalen Hurts a healthy projection. Like, it's not like we're under projecting Jalen Hurts. I think he was our highest projected guy, right?
Yeah, I know, 100%. And this is interesting here. So I'm going to address some of these comments real quick. First one, the viral videos is right. Hit the like button, please. Please smash that like button and hit subscribe for us. Are there only 2 QB and 2 running back builds? We can check that here in just a second. It does look like there might be. If you highlight Barkley, the quarter, just both running backs on the flex.
Look at that real quick. Look at that.
Oh,
17% 5-1s, which, I mean, that's a lot. It's definitely all right. So do what?
Wicks 30.5 prop, 3 catches or so. If he gets into the end zone, it's fine. I do think he's a little touch too expensive, though. Like we were saying, for a 4th wide receiver, it's definitely tough. Brock seems like a Packers fan. AP. I do want to know if Heath would get more time over Melton. I had it the other way around. I did have Melton getting more snaps than Heath tonight, but I could be wrong. Melton was Malik Heath played a ton in the preseason, I thought, and it looked like Bo Melton has always had a spot in the team. Might even have a couple design plays for him tonight. Other than that, can you just highlight the Barkley and Jacobs both and see how much they populate together? Because that was a pack that I was looking at.
How do we do that? Factor in the captains too.
Well, it's not.
Or do you just want to see in the flex?
Yeah,
what?
I just want to see it in the flex here because I don't think I'm playing unless it's Jacobs at captain. I think I'd rather play a quarterback in the captain. So Jacobs right there, say plus. So
4 lineups.
Let's see here, and that one is Jordan Love without Hurts. So Jordan Love without Hurts. Let's keep scrolling. Let's see if we get a captain build that has both quarterbacks, but it's an Eagles defense. Oh, these don't look great. Digital Buddha. I gotta say these. Oh wait, here we go. We might get one. Jordan Love. No, there's no way Hurts fits in that build. So it doesn't seem like it wants both quarterbacks with both running backs, which I can't fault it. I'm gonna trust the Sims on that one. I probably won't run it. If I had to fade one, I'd probably lean toward fading Barkley over the 2 right now.
Okay. So they obviously negatively correlated right there. You can see.
I think they're underestimating the passing game involvement for Jacobs in a sense too. I think he's script proof in a sense. I actually think both these running backs are. I actually liked Josh Jacobs over 2.5 receptions. That was actually something I was looking at today too.
This definitely feels like a slate where we could see a I guess, what was the chop last night? 8 players?
98K.
13 players. Do you think it more or less? Do you think it's going to be like when I look at this and all I think it's like maybe 3 to 5 player chop. Like it's an interesting millie maker.
It's less if we get these touchdowns from a guy like Dobbs, Wicks, throw a Musgrave in there or something like that. I think it would take 2 different Packers wide receivers for it to be really unique. Because I don't think a lot of people are going to be wanting to play the guess who game with the Packers wide receivers, and for good reason. If you're only running a couple lineups, it's really hard to pinpoint that. It's single entry and stuff. I just want these guys who I know are going to get involvement. That's both these running back. I'm still stressed about the fact that none of those double QB, double running back builds hit because I like that coming in. But if the Sims don't trust it, Saber is 10 times smarter than I'll ever be. I kind of want to trust Saber a little bit more.
So this isn't too surprising to me. I'm now sorting by single entry, and we get Jordan Love captain. Obviously bullish on Jordan Love, but double quarterback builds makes sense. Single entry, that's the route I would want to go. And then the skill position players are elite on this slate. So I'm not surprised that we don't have kickers, defenses, or anything like that. It's the cheap, underpriced receivers, obviously quarterbacks, all underpriced. Any thoughts on the single entry builds right here?
Yeah, good point on the kickers. Yesterday they had a slight chance with Butker and Tucker, but they really never got close, and that was because of Isaiah Likely. You would need a build like specifically funneling toward the kickers to play on tonight. I think if you had the option to go one of Watson, Wicks, Musgrave over those kickers, I would. And I just think that those wide receivers offer a ton more upside than those kickers, especially.
I guess the one risk would be the lack of running backs in here. But again, I guess they're Josh Jacobs.
It's tough because
Jacobs, Jacobs is in there. Yeah, I like that.
1.2K more expensive than Jacobs, and that's where it matters. Like I want to like Barkley more straight up, but that price difference is very worthwhile.
Yeah, I like that. Let me try one thing real quick, and I want to rerun this.
Yeah,
I want to take a look at that rule so that we can get a little bit more aggressive on the Packers. Let me set this up real quick. Receivers. So in Showdown, if you're creating a group rule, it's a little different because we want to make sure that we bring them in from the captain spot and all right. So Watson, Dobbs.
You got to make it an if rule, right? I think you got to make it an if rule. Are you doing Jordan?
No more than two. Hold on.
Oh, okay,
I'll show you what I'm doing. Jaden Reed. So, all right, we got the captains. What I want is no more than two of these receivers in any one lineup. And let's. Do we include the punts also?
Yeah,
I just want to see how. Okay. Let's. Yeah. We'll
throw in Wicks, throw in Heath. You know,
some of these guys won't apply. Yeah, and then you do it from the flex also. So because obviously that's part of the lineup. So throw them all in there. So now it's no matter what, we won't have two of these receivers in any one of our builds. That's right. And now here's kind of what I was saying, Rubio, is we're bullish on the Packers receiving core, but we don't know who it's going to be. But we want to be over on the we'll just say these three. So now we can get let's just get real aggressive with these projections. Let's go 15-3, 14. I'm just making these up on the fly. 14-9. We're really, really, really bullish on these guys. Let's rerun it. I just want to see what these builds look like. Settings.
You can even just rerun the contest, Sam. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you make I guess
with the rule added. That's a good idea.
Yeah,
we added the rule, not just change the projection. Makes sense.
Yeah, I just wanted to see kind of because it is interesting. Now, again, I don't think I'm going to run a rule like this because I want to embrace the variance in the Millie Maker. But if I was playing 3-max or single entry and I wanted more builds to look at, this is a rule that I would consider because it would take a pretty interesting game script to have situations where we're getting three Green Bay receivers, in from an optimal standpoint. Could it happen? Yes, it definitely could. I think probably 1,500 builds is enough. I mean, do you ever run a rule like this?
Yeah, I actually think we never talked about it, but I'd probably run a rule of one of Smith and Brown tonight. I usually separate these top tier wide receivers a little bit, especially when they're the same price as the quarterbacks almost. But Jamar Chase and T Higgins, I rarely ever pair together and stuff. Same with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. So I like to make rules, especially if you're not running 150. If you're only running 20 or whatever, I would make rules like that because I really want to hone in on what I think is going to happen. Also factoring in the sims.
So let's just look at the single entry contest again.
I don't know.
Yeah,
like
kind of interesting there. Yeah, we're obviously, we now know that, hey, we're not going to get, we're aggressive on the receiving core that we like. We know that there's no chance of having three of those receivers, which is going to force us to have, exposure to the Philly side too, what you're seeing here. But again, the 5-1s on the Green Bay side just tells me that the pricing is wrong, right? I mean, what does that tell you? We're getting a lot of 5-1s, 17% on the first run that we did. Or maybe we're too bullish on Green Bay. Who knows?
I don't think we're too bullish on them. Look at Goddard's like the last guy who's going to get guaranteed usage. Like Dotson's not going to get guaranteed usage on the Eagles. Like he's 5,800. Then you have to jump up to 9,400 for Barkley, 9K for Smith, 11K for Brown. That's it with Philly, not including Jalen Hurts. With the Packers, you got 7 or 8 dudes who are going to play. And that's, Jacobs, like all 6 tight ends and wide receivers combined, not including Melton and Heath. Like, they're all cheap too. They're all under 7K outside Jacobs. Like
I love these type of builds.
I think the Packers win. I don't know about you, but do you think the Packers win?
I think the more I think about it now, I think the easy way out is like a Hurts or Jordan Love captain. Like, and I took the easy way out last night. Like I love these, Dobbs captain, Christian Watson captain. I think these builds are really, really interesting.
So if I had to guess, and this is what we're going to have a bunch of content up. Don't forget, there's a college football slate tonight with a huge prize pool too. I know Bruce is going to have the content up. So
it's a busy day.
Yeah,
it's a very busy day.
We got baseball. We have Boynton in the chat too. I know he's going to be on the show for the MLB show later on today. But I really like looking at maybe what like the cash build is with when Bryce does his content here, because I'm wondering who his preferred captain is going to be. And this is a good comment from Brock too. Like, yeah, almost have to fade Philly wide receivers if you're building pack heavy. And this is just a guess. I'm not much of a cash player at all. Bryce puts a ton down on cash every week. He's very successful. And I'm wondering if he goes like Jalen Hurts captain and then like does 4 Packers with, 1 pass catcher on the Eagles at most. Like, I'm very curious to see what the cash build is. I'm very curious to see his rankings. And I kind of want to see what the cash approach is for this one, just to get a sense of what he's going to do and what the cash type builds are going to look like.
I like this one too. Dobbs captain. We're kind of isolating those elite receivers, but we get a running back in there, and then we get a kicker too. We get a kicker right there. So we could go on and on. I mean, there's so many really, really nice builds. It's going to be a fun slate. Let's give our final takes and let's get out of here. Your most important player in captain or flex, and what's your who do you have winning tonight, and a score prediction?
Christian Watson is my most important player today. With Watson, we have seen this Eagles defense, albeit it being changed completely with Fangio coming as defensive coordinator, a decent investment with draft picks and other stuff into the secondary. But they lost a couple key pass rushers. They lost Fletcher Cox. They lost Hassan Reddick. I think this secondary is still going to struggle. Christian Watson is the best wide receiver on this Packers team. 5,600 is the softest price we are probably going to see on him. With both hamstrings healthy, as long as he stays healthy, he's in line for a big year. He is my most important player tonight and one that I'm heavy on in both player props and in fantasy. As far as this game goes, I think the Packers take this one. I think they're going to be very successful this year. That's not a knock on the Eagles. I'm going to go with a final score of 31-24 Packers.
Oh, I love that. Absolutely love that. We're both on the same side. We're both on the overs. Things are starting to align. You love to see it. I'm going to take the easy road out. I love the Christian Watson call. It's literally like a coin flip. Dobbs, Reed. So I'm just going to say Jordan Love. I think Jordan Love, with what we saw at the end of last season, he was incredible. He was awesome. I mean, he owned my Chiefs in that one game. That was like the turning point for the Packers. Like, absolutely owned my Chiefs, and then they kept it going. They should have beat the 49ers, and I think he keeps it going. I think he has a big game tonight. Who do I pair with? I'm going to pair all these guys. I love the Christian Watson call, obviously. I'm going to say 28-24. Green Bay gets it done, and the overs get it done for us as well, with Jordan Love being our most important player tonight. Can you give us a rundown of all the other content real quick, and then I'll get us out of here, Rubio?
So this is the most shows I've ever seen in one day on the Run Pure Sports website, because we usually have a stacked Friday list anyway, but today we have a Friday night football game. So you also had this one at 11. You have a 2:00 show for college football for tomorrow's slate on Saturday, which is a big time. I think it's like a $300K prize pool, $100K up top. At 3:30, you have the Friday night Print Factory with JSU and Tony, Big T. At 3:30, you also have the NFL cash game show with Mangone and Bryce, I assume. So they go over the main slate there. MLB show at 4:45 with our guy Boynton, who was just in the chat. He'll be on that one. And then at 5 p.m., we have the NFL Vegas strategy for the NFL picking winners with Stats JBC. They both went over a lot of winners last time out. I think that also has JT Hayes on it too, doesn't it, AP?
Yes, it does. It
Perfect.
absolutely does. Excellent, Rubio. As always, best of luck tonight. Best of luck to all of you watching. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe. It helps us out a lot over here at Run Pure Sports. With that, I'm AP. That's Rubio Dimes. Best of luck. And as always, Run Pure.